George Vago's experience with photography began as a child, growing up in Budapest, Hungary, where his father was an avid and well-known street photographer. Unlike most photographers, George, with his father's supervision, acquired darkroom skills long before he picked up a camera.
Anyhow, my father was very interested in photography. That was his hobby, and a very serious hobby, just like I started it. And he was a very well-respected photographer and a very well-respected master printer.
In 1956, as a result of the Hungarian uprising, Vago, along with his family, left Hungary and escaped to the United States. In the U.S., he studied aerospace engineering and subsequently pioneered his own engineering firm.
So here we are with the camera that finally broke the camel's back. This is the camera what I used for many years. So after a while, I was so upset with the heavy camera that I wanted to stop photographing. Then came the idea, being an engineer, why don't I design and build my own camera that I can carry around?
Vago did not allow his engineering experience to distract him from his love of photography. His education in photography was enhanced with the acquaintance of Marvin Wax, Morley Bayer, Oliver Gagliani, and Ansel Adams, all established and well-known West Coast photographers.
When I go out to the mountains or anywhere, I don't just whack out my camera and start shooting. I sit down, I look around, I kind of take in what's around me. It's a contemplative procedure. First, I have to calm my down after the driving when I get somewhere. Okay, driving on roads wherever you go, regardless, it brings stress onto your body and mind. So there has to be a disconnect. And I'm using that little time when I arrive somewhere first to transform myself and my soul to be part of where I am in nature before I start looking. Looking is an interesting thing. You're always looking, but you don't always seeing. There were times in my life when I go and drive, yes, sometimes 2-3 days without pulling my camera out of the truck. It's like the song, what the song says, when you're hot, when you're not, you're not.
Well, I first met George at his house when he hosted the first Christmas party, I think it was. And he just totally blew me away with all his wonderful photographs that he had hanging in his home on the wall, all those great black and whites that he has. And every now and again we run into each other at club meetings and such. I've always enjoyed his company. But I think George's big claim to fame, photographically, for me at least, is that he's an excellent mentor.
Well, didn't he start out doing darkroom work before he did photography? So maybe that's the way to do it, or the way to learn real photography. Might have been to, know what the result's going to be, and then how do you get that once you get out there with your camera. Oh, I think the big thing is when we see the actual prints, all the detail and just the super resolution and the exposure and the processing and the printing all going together to make those almost seem like unreal. They look like art. You can see all the detail in the shadows and just picture some trees, and they actually glow, and you see that, you know why the photographer George decided to shoot this because there was something there, and he was able to show what that was that he saw. So that.
Well, I think certainly when I look at his images, I am reminded so much of the Ansel Adams photographs, which I know he studied with Ansel Adams, and when I look at them, I sometimes think truly that I'm looking at an Ansel Adams image.
In 1991, Vago was invited by the Russian government to travel to central Siberia for 6 weeks, sponsored by Eastman Kodak and Minolta. He was assigned to photograph the Siberian landscape. However, he returned with portraits of the region, not landscapes.
In 1992, 2 weeks after the glasnost in the Soviet Union, when the Soviet Union collapsed and Gorbachev took the reign of the country, he came up with the word glasnost, which means openness. He wanted to show the whole world that the Soviet Union is not a black box. So he decided to invite a handful of American photographers to an area in the Soviet Union, which is central Siberia, where no Westerner has set foot for about 75 years. The reason I remember this project is because I was selected as a landscape photographer. Unfortunately, the part of Siberia where we went to was the western part of Siberia, where the landscape was not as dramatic as I would love to see. I fell back to my very first education I got from my father in people photography. And I concentrated on doing environmental portraitures. That is photographing people everywhere, wherever I found them, from the bus stops to the factory. The Russian government gave me a KGB press pass, which opened door even to hospitals' operating rooms.
Well, first meeting George, I thought he was almost so superior to me, I didn't even want to ask him a question. But when he was so inviting and let us come in his home and see his collection, his perfection of nature, it blew me away. And it just reminds me about, well, you know how the Brits say the eyes have it? Well, I believe the eyes have it, and George has it at the max. It's so inspiring. In fact, I have a brief quote here, and it's, "The voyage of discovery is not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." And I think George talked about that a lot, hiking in to find this peaceful nature at its best, in the right lighting, etc. So I feel he was a friend, but also a teacher. And I'm just glad our paths crossed.
Vago, a lifetime of study, a love of the outdoors, and mastery of printing and composition led to dozens of beautiful photo collections that distinguish him as a master photographer. He knows what makes a great image. It is part of who he is.